Hello and welcome everyone to my channel. My name is Margaret Pinard. I'm a historical fiction and fantasy author and eclectic reader. So welcome. You are on Booktube and it's a day for a little feature. We don't usually do news features, but I didn't see other people covering this, and so I'm going to bring you some publishing industry news as an author insider, if I could still say that. So, welcome to the channel. We have an author insider feature to talk about what you saw in the thumbnail and the title, The Death of the Mass Market Paperback. So, because there's going to be some insider terms, I'll be sure to define them as I go, give you examples, give you sources down in the description, and if you have questions, feel free to ask. And if you're new here and wondering what this is about, you can subscribe to the channel. I don't often do news, but I do book tags, book reviews, and funny little chats with people who love to read books. So that's what you're in for. But topic. This is our topic today. Mass market paperbacks. What are they, first of all, and why are they dying, right? So there are 3 standard sizes for print books, physical books, as they're called, in the US. Now, in the UK, they get a little bit different, and in France, they put them upside down. And, every country has their own way of doing things. But here are my my funny examples. Hardcover. Second Jane Austen mystery by Stephanie Barron. Jane and the Man of the Cloth. This is the size compared to my head, so you could all see. It's hardcover. It's going to be hard to bend, and you probably shouldn't do it, but that's the first size. Second size is called trade paper, which is what I publish all my books in, which is soft and foldable or bendable. And there's my favorite book, Keening. So that's the size compared to my head, just a little bit bigger. And then the third one is the mass market paperback, just about the size of my face. Look at that. So you'll notice that it's another copy of the same book because we did an accidental buy a copy of a book you already have. And, transparency. That's what we do on this channel. Honesty, transparency. I don't know which one I'll keep, but here's the one we're going to talk about today. It's 4.25 inches by 6.27 inches, 6.87, sorry. So I looked all these up. Recently, this is not a recent copy. This is probably late 90s. Let's see. 1997. Recently, especially in the thriller genre, they've made it 7 inches, so it's a tiny bit taller. And when I worked at a used bookstore, it was the bane of the owner's existence that those existed because it just created a problem for everybody. So anyway, that's what we're talking about today, mass market paperbacks. And you'll notice I put a question in the chat, question of the day. There's 2 parts. The first one is, do you regularly read these handy pocket editions? And if so, second part of the question, or if not, do you notice them disappearing? Because our headline today is that the mass market paperbacks that you're used to seeing in grocery stores, retailers, gas stations, airports, they are no longer going to be printed. And so you will only be able to find these in used bookstores because the publishing industry has decreed that the profits are not high enough. So we'll get into that in just a second. Let me say hello to the chat. So Julie was here saying she got my postcard. Lovely. Welcome to the chat. Julie's answer, I don't read mass market paperbacks now, but I do have a few on my shelves, i.e. Trollope's The Warden. Yeah, here's the thing. Sometimes it doesn't matter what size the book is. The font can be too small. I don't know. That's the font compared to my face, if that helps as a reference. Yeah, I think it's pretty readable, but I've been told by others that it's not. So who knows? Subjective. Leslie is here. Hello, hello. Alan is here. Good evening. Working and listening. Lovely to see you. Gavin at Genre Books has a recent video on the demise of mass markets. Oh, okay. Excellent. So someone else is paying attention. Thank you for bringing that to my notice. Catpa says, yes, it is my size of choice. The American paperback is too heavy to hold with one hand. So they're talking about the trade paper and be able to read. It's the one I've read since I was a kid. Yeah. So there's their up next to each other. What a difference. Oh, I should do this, shouldn't I? There we go. They fit one within the other. And yeah, size and heft is definitely a factor. Catpa says, I was so looking forward to seeing Time Shift in mass market paperback. I've already set it up and now, well, you never know. We'll get into who has canceled their contracts and why it's changing in just a second. I'd never seen the big paperbacks until I moved to Mexico. Interesting. Huh. All right. Well, I started traveling on my own to the UK, probably 2010s. And I definitely saw the bookstores filled with those. So those were familiar to me from the US and we're already in the UK by then. So maybe we're thinking of different eras. All right. So that's what they are. And now the headline, right? So mass markets, these little darlings, used to be the golden boy of publishing. From the late 1960s until the mid 1990s, like when this one came out, they exploded because of 3 reasons. And again, if you want to read more about this, I have my sources for these topics in the description below. So there was new printing technology that made it easier to just reformat, do different plates, and whip these out. There was a new distribution networks, meaning that supply chains were set up for non-bookstore stores like Walmart, Target, your grocery stores, your gas stations, your airports, all those places where you see magic, cheap pocket editions, but they're not bookstores, right? So that happened. And then new licensing agreements. So if you had a contract as an author to print these and these a year later because you got different segments of the market, well, now you can get a third segment of the market by giving a different sort of right to print these for 2 years or 7 years or whatever. And so the legal non-tangible progress of that change enabled this big sweep and a very profitable industry. Which books are these usually used for? Well, this is a mystery. We've got, actually, this is on my TBR. These people are the same. Stephanie Barron and Francine Matthews are 2 pen names. This is her CIA thriller cover, and this is her historical fiction pen name. So pretty cool that they're in next to each other. You've got okay, I made big piles of these. There's not enough room on the desk to put these piles because I've got a Climathon pile and I've got a TBR pile. So now I have to dig through the other piles on the floor. Let's see. I've got, I don't know, I guess I'd call this a classic. Colleen McCullough's The Lady of Missolonghi. I really enjoyed that, and it's a very small book. This is also the origin or the original, the OG sprayed edges, which is why I always laugh. People get so crazy about sprayed edges today as a special feature when they were doing this like in the 1960s or the 1980s, but there we go. We have classics that are made in mass market. So a lot of my Jane Austen books are classics from different eras, as you can tell. Classics. Sister Carrie by Theodore Dreiser. I'm going to go over the publishers in a second too. And then we have romance. How could you forget the romance covers? Grace Burroughs is one of my favorite historical romance authors. And of course, from the 90s, they're going to have these like shirt off covers, which are historically inaccurate because there would be chemises there. But you know, who cares about accuracy? We're looking for a love story. What else have we got? I've got thrillers. So this is a romantic thriller, Elizabeth Lowell, Moving Target. My favorite of Elizabeth Lowell's because it also has a little bit of supernatural history in there, but very thriller-esque. We've got science fiction fantasy. This is sort of a paranormal thriller by Gail Carriger, Soulless, which started off a whole series, which I think I read the whole series, but I don't have all of them with me. More paranormal romance, Sherilyn Kenyon, Fantasy Lover. It's one of my favorites. Let's see. So mystery, thriller, romance, science fiction, and fantasy. Those are basically the ones, right? So what you'll notice is these are all genres. The redheaded stepchild of the literary world, all the genre fiction, and not the literary fiction. So maybe you know this because you've been to my channel before, but those are my go-tos. Those are my enjoyable comfort reads. Those are my rereads. Literary fiction on this channel does get a little short shrift. I do follow some booktube channels that go after literary fiction, but I don't often pull the trigger to read or buy or clamor about those because they often don't connect with me as well. So just a little quirk of the channel, I suppose. But this is a big deal in the literary world. So mass market paperbacks are for genre, and they're getting short shrift. They're getting cut out. So let's continue. They used to be the Golden Boys. They are now being kicked off because of rapidly changing costs. So to print a book, I can tell you from my own experience, author insider feature. To print a book, there's the cost of paper, there's the cost of glue, there's the cost of design, there's the cost of production, and then there's the cost of shipping. So all those things have gone up recently. And we move from, $15, which is what I first listed this as, I believe, $14.95, and then $15.95, and then $17, to make any sort of profit on the book, to not go in the negative when you're selling the book from a drop ship printer. And so that's why you've seen trade paper costs go up. But that means the same thing is happening for these mass market paperbacks. And since they have a smaller price point, that means the margins are going to be smaller. And so that's why they've said, we're just not going to do it anymore. The big thing with the mass markets is that because they have the different distribution network, it was mainly coordinated by one big player called ReaderLink. And ReaderLink last year, I think in March or something, announced that they would no longer distribute mass market paperbacks. So the biggest player in that distribution space was stepping out of the ring, and as soon as 2026 started. So this is why we have the death knell. In addition to the costs going up, there's also increased competition from other things like doom scrolling. Wouldn't you rather doom scroll than read a book? And ebooks, because you can read ebooks and they're about the same price point, right? They're not like treasures. They're just cheap things and you can forget about them if you have enough space. There's audiobooks, which you can store digitally and you never have to dust. So pressures from both ends, which is why the distributor is having a hard time making money back, and they've decided to forego. And that means the industry is changing. You may not know this from the reader perspective, but these vast middleman distributors exist in all different networks, right? So there's different companies like ReaderLink that exist to take books from the publishers and printers to bookstores, right? There's catalogs for those, to schools, to school fairs, to libraries. There's a different one for libraries, and they've had a whole shakeup as well. There's a different one for retailers, as we said, that's ReaderLink. So where will Walmart and Target and such get their books now? Well, they have shifted from taking the small books that are cheaper, that might catch people's eye in the grocery store, to the trade paper, which are more expensive and more likely to get them a profit as a middleman seller. So corporate greed at its finest. I thought there were some interesting historical analyses in these articles that I looked up, and so I just wanted to point those out. Mass market paperbacks' superpower for publishing was that publishers only needed to do limited promotion for them because once the books were on the shelves, they sold themselves. Now that is no longer the case. With reduced shelf space, publishers can't put as many books on the shelf, and that, coupled with the rising costs, especially paper and gas, meant that the profit margins from cheaper paperbacks got so low that there was no longer a profit from them, as I said. So publishers began pivoting to trade paperback. Trade-sized paperbacks are larger and more expensive to make, but most important, independent bookstores stock them. So here, that's why we're able to access more markets, so that counters the costs. And so publishers who were tired of Walmart's stranglehold on what books were stocked, which books were stocked, decided to publish books aiming at the trade market where they could get them into a wider range of shelves. This is interesting. So we've got two different sources sort of putting the causation relationship differently. One said this got too expensive to sell, and so they took them out. And another person or perspective is saying that, well, we went from this to this because we could put it in more markets and then not have to deal with the monopoly market with another format, which made it more expensive. So it's a little different. It's a little tricky to see what exactly was the driver. There's lots of different things. So Target now takes only trade paperback. And since ReaderLink will no longer distribute mass market to Walmart, Walmart will only take trade now too. So higher prices, higher margins. And here's the thing that like appeals to my little economist heart is how elastic is this market, right? So elasticity, if you think about it like this, it's how much, like how addicted are you to the thing, right? Do you need it every day? Is there no substitute? Or could you make a decision to do something else like doom scroll if the thing gets too expensive? The more addicted to that exact thing you are that you can't replace and must cough up the dough, that's called inelasticity in the market. And so I think people have found that ebooks are pretty elastic. People can just go elsewhere, do other things. Mass market paperbacks are pretty elastic because there's so many other formats. The library is not the same thing because you don't own it, but it is another choice. So I just thought that was a really interesting phenomenon choice that people are making. Oh, I missed the chat. Let's go back to the chat and see what you all are thinking. Julie says yes to cat paw. Elaine is here. Hi, puttering as I listen. Julie bought nothing but mass markets as a young woman. It was the only thing available to be affordable to me. Exactly. And that's why they were doing it, because they hit you with the first price point. Guess how much this is, right? This is crazy. I never buy hardcovers new, right? And this is the reason why. 1997. So we've got the same date. Any guesses? So hardcover, what price is that? I already told you the price for the trade, but that's more recent. And then versus mass market. So what do we think the spread is, to talk in gamblers terms, between the hardcover and the mass market? Erin is here. Hello. Trying to see if this will happen in the UK. I think what we call A format is the US mass market. Possible. I have no idea what they're called in the UK. I do know that there's a source link for standard sizing of books in the description, and it doesn't have the nomenclature, but it does have the centimeters and inches readings. Shirts. Yeah. Right. Romance covers in the 90s. You can't really. That is an inelastic demand, isn't it, Beth Ann? Welcome. Cat Paw is here. Mass market paperbacks, or paperbacks as we call them, were affordable and lighter when you pack up and move. That's true. Yeah, people who move a lot, you're going to be investing in the smaller formats. I mean, unless you have someone packing it up for you, right? Because there's those kind of people too. Erin says, we are moving towards trade paperbacks too. I wonder if big shiny hardbacks backed by Book Talk is the most profitable for publishers. Oh, is Book Talk pushing hardcovers? I did not see that. I guess the special editions with sprayed edges and like gold foil features and things like that will be hardcovers. Yeah, I think I have maybe a different algorithm on TikTok that brings me more indie authors. But yeah, fair point. Romance, Margaret. Yes. Hello, Mike from Riff Raff Reads. I think we still issue mass market paperbacks here in South Africa, but no longer issue hardcovers, just large airport style paperbacks. I think it's an affordability issue. Yeah, that's the one that really bugged my boss at the used bookstore. They were slightly taller, so they had like a different ratio, and it just messed up the bookshelf eye line for her, which is really funny. James Patterson is a huge culprit of these. So that's why I think it's mostly thrillers that did that extra like 1/4 of an inch. And hey, I've heard of that book, The Keening. Yes. See, it's the perfect opportunity to just swan it around. Need to read book 2, which is The Grasping Root, which is over in a box over there. I only had so many shelves to put behind me here. Kappa says the profit margin on ebooks must be generous if it's about the same as mass market paperbacks and you can't lend one to a friend. Yeah, the fact that you don't actually have one. So if you say it's about the same as a mass market paperback, so ebooks do range widely in cost, and I think they can be anywhere from less or more expensive than a mass market paperback with no printing, production, shipping costs, right? So yeah, profit margins would be much higher on ebooks, no matter what the price point is. And there's an interesting choice being made now, which is a lot of TradPub authors are putting out ebooks that are $10, which I just don't see the point of. That's not bringing joy at all. Eloise, hello. Another author insider here. Margaret, thank goodness you're streaming. I was about to have to work in silence. Always streaming at 10 a.m. Pacific. Book Talk pushes the pretty books. Yeah, but I think there are multiple formats. But let me know. Kiana is here. Shexy lady. Hello. I buy the cheapest version of a book possible. But is it an ebook or is it a paperback? Are they the same to you? That's the question. Is it elastic? Are they exactly the same? You don't care? Or is there a little bit of a tug towards one more than the other? All right. So do I read? Here's the questions of the day. I didn't pin them, but they're at the very top of the chat. Do you regularly read mass market paperbacks? And have you noticed that they're disappearing? Now, I've heard some of you weigh in on have you noticed? So thank you for that. I'm going to just go through some of my favorites in the collection. I just reread. Where did I put them? Okay, well, I'll just go through all of these real quick. I already showed you these. So Australian author. I have not read The Thornbirds, but I did read this one because I found it first. Loved it, kept it. Classics like Jane Austen. So this is Avon Books, a romance publisher. This is a Bantam classic, which will come up later because we're talking about Bantam hitting the records in the 70s. This is a Signet classic of Mansfield Park, a little earlier. Signet classic. So these doing the pocket editions. And this is going to be Source Books, which is still around and does multiple formats. So I love Source Books as a romance and women's fiction publisher. So that's the only one I think I have of that. What else have we got? We've got a range I'll show. Belongings is a much less known author, Alexandra Rife, but I loved this romance novel. It's a Penguin Putnam. So Penguin has its own pocket edition. We've got Mary Stewart, The Stormy Petrel romance. That's going to be Fawcett. That's an old one. And it's what's called a step back, meaning that the shiny cover on the front, the card, is not as long as the book, and it opens to like an illustrated scene. Some people love these, some people hate them. It just came on my Mary Stewart book, so I'll take it. Gift from the Sea, that's the classic by Anne Morrow Lindbergh. This is a vintage. I have a lot of vintage publisher pocketbooks. So this is actually a really special one from my great aunt, 1975. Oof, so that's a really good one. This is a Bantam book, another one of my favorites that I've put in lists, How to Survive the Loss of a Love, which is about grief and grieving by a psychiatrist. It's really good. Another Signet classic, Jane Eyre. This one is actually falling apart, and I've already taken some of the pages out to use as decoration. Another favorite, science fiction, Kate Wilhelm is a favorite psychiatric Psychological thriller. There you go. Psychological thriller. This is one of my favorite books from like 25 years ago. Margaret and I couldn't help but pick that up. And history. History also goes pocket edition. This is one of Gareth's favorite, The Making of the English Working Class by E.P. Thompson, Gareth's favorite authors. You'll notice I have lots and lots of tabs in there. It is published by the Open University Set Book, a Pelican book. So Pelican is another one of these pocket editions. So that's great. That was making a huge textbook affordable for me. What else have we got? I showed you the Elizabeth Lowell romance thriller. That is Avon. So that's a romance one. Soulless is put out by, should be on the cover, but it's not. Orbit. There we go. Orbit and their mass market paperback edition. And the Sherilyn Kenyon is St. Martin's Paperbacks. So they had their own, what's it called? Imprint. That's what it's called. What else have I loved? So some of these I just brought back from my parents' house. Park Godwin is a favorite for historical fantasy. Sherwood, one of my favorites. Avon Nova fantasy. So I think that's like a romance sci-fi marriage for mass market paperback imprint. Whatever happened with that. We've got Melanie Ron, the Dragon Prince trilogy. So I don't have the Dragon Prince, but I have books 2 and books 3. Those are from DAW Fantasy. So some of you may know that brand much better than I do because I only dabbled as a middle schooler. And then I've got all my mysteries from Laurie R. King. Some of them are hardcovers, but I was able to find mass market paperbacks used for a lot of them. It starts with The Beekeeper's Apprentice, one of my favorites of all times. We have Locked Rooms, Oh Jerusalem, and The More. The More is the one that sort of echoes what's the dog? What's the big haunted dog mystery called? Alan will know. And this is from Bantam Books. So again, one of the classic famous publishers. Here we go. Here are the other ones that I was looking for. I wouldn't have been able to read these if I didn't find them in mass market paperback, published by different people, it looks like, which is weird. So Bantam, Dell Fantasy, and Seal Books. That's 3 different publishers for 3 out of 4 in a series, which is kind of weird. So it's telling me that Amanda Scott's books went from one publisher to another, which is really weird because this is an epic and awesome series. Classics. Look at this. This is a mass market paperback, and we're not going to get these anymore. J.R.R. Tolkien, put out by BB in America for 95 cents. This is my mom's. Is this my mom's copy? Or those are at home. This is another copy that I picked up. Ballantine Books. And the much more recent published Silmarillion edition from Ballantine Books Fantasy. So apparently they still have the rights to Tolkien and they're hanging on to it, which makes sense. These are the ones that I just reread in the past 3 days. I think I took them from my house. Anne Bishop's novels of the others. And there we go. They're really good. They're like really pacey. I skimmed some things, so enjoyed the humor again, and I'll probably let them go now, but I do have to include them in a wrap up later. So those are all my favorites, mass market paperbacks that I'm keeping. Let's get back to the chat here, and then I'll tell you the price difference, the price spread. Book Talk also publishes brand new books, says Aaron, and hardbacks come out 6 months before paperbacks. So this isn't a hard and fast rule. We tried to figure out if there was a hard and fast rule, and there is not. Sometimes the hardcover is published at the same time as the paperback. Sometimes it takes a year. Sometimes it takes 2 years. With really famous books, they try to milk the hardcover high price for as much as it will get and as long as people will wait before the inelastic demand kicks in, right? So yeah, corporate greed. Just look at the shelves of any big booktuber too. All shiny hardbacks the publisher has sent them. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I get about 3 of those a year. So you won't find those on my shelves. I actually sell those back. So Kiana, I don't care. Price is the biggest concern. In which format I buy. Okay, so then you are truly an elastic book buyer, which is interesting because I don't think many of us are. But yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Some things I'm elastic. Although I feel like as I get older, I'm more inelastic about things. I want them the way I want them. So yeah, if you can be more flexible, then more power to you, Kiana. Eloise says, I don't regularly read mass markets. Most of mine are the 5.5 by 8.5 paperbacks, the trade paper, because that's what is most readily available at the bookstores I go to. Yes. I like it too. I like them. And if they're not big chunkers, they're easy to hold. If you get a huge chunker like the History of the English Working Class, even as a mass market, that's hard to hold. So I get it. Cat Paw says, will be interesting to see if Penguin Classics will change then. Yes. Right? Because people have different imprints in their publishers. So, I mean, there's still going to be places that want to sell those types, like the airport. But, and I go into Fred Meyer, which is I forget what the brand, Kroger. And they have like, a quarter of a wall that's all paperbacks, and they're all very popular current releases. And I go, it's not where I would buy my books. I'm trying to support the bookstores, obviously. And Grace is here. Hello, Books and Cooks, popping in on a work break. So sad about the end of the mass market. Yeah, it's annoying because it's due to corporate greed is my conclusion. TLDR, corporate greed. Erin says, I buy one new release a month in hardback. Everything else is cheap secondhand stuff in all formats and sizes, or 99p ebooks. There you go. Okay, so I think Erin's more like Kiana, opportunistic. You have your one like treasure that you want to make the one type of decision for, and then everything else is sort of opportunistic. And that makes sense to me too. Julie says, yeah, are the Penguin Classics B&W books considered mass market paperbacks? I don't know. Oh, black and white. Penguin Classics B&W. You'd have to look at the trim size. That's the name for the dimensions. So like I put in the description, the last source there is the standard sizes. The trim size for a mass market paperback is 4.25 inches by 6.87 or 7 inches, depending on if you get the extra tall or the regular ones. And if it's bigger than that, either width or height, then you're dealing with a special version or a trade paper. Yeah, see, Alan would know. Alan of the Baskervilles. It's the Moor, and it's actually a pun because it's about someone who's coming from the Middle East, the Moor, as well as Devonshire. It's so good. If you haven't read Laurie R. King, you definitely should. Her early books are really cool. Grace says, tried to get my spouse some Resident Evil and Alien v Predator books for Christmas, and I had to buy secondhand because they're only physically available in mass market paperbacks. Oh, the only ebook option being Amazon. Yeah, so Grace knows we don't do Amazon. No. Yeah, so that's licensing. And you weren't here, so I'll recap. One of the pieces that opened up mass market paperbacks for 30 years was a licensing agreement for a limited time, different trim size and different distribution network release for this format. But that has now closed. The door is closed on that. So yeah, some people are going to be squeezed out and not have the edition at all. And some people are only going to have Amazon for an option. And yeah, it's going to affect marketing budgets everywhere because it's going to be narrowed, which books are being bought and being sold at storefronts. Erin says, Penguin Classics are B format in the UK, which is slightly bigger, 5 by 7.8 inches. The old ones are A format, which is 4.37 by 7, so the closest we have. Okay, yeah, they're all slightly different. And I'm going to go over a couple other cheap editions that I have that I also love for sentimental reasons and from other markets. So we'll see those in just a second. Ellen says, Lori R. King, great for homes is where the heart is. Just saying. Oh, yes, that's true. Is that happening this month? Yes. So it's a American author who's writing books about Sherlock Holmes, but obviously not canon, not Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. So later in life with a sidekick. She's great. Thank you to Erin for the sizes. Specificity. Eloise says, I think it's the only mass market paperback I have is a copy of Watership Down because it's one my dad read to me as a kid. Oh, see, sentimental. We're not going to let go. You're not going to get them out of our cold, dead grip, or however that saying goes. Eloise says, I'll admit I do like a pretty book. Yes, you do. But I'll take a paperback over the expensive hardback with sprayed edges. Me too. Same material and harder to store. So, I have both of these. Which one am I going to keep? Since I got this one at the used bookstore on my last trip home. Thing is, Thousand Oaks. So I think I got this there as well. I mean, they're the same era, so it's not like they're different. It's hard to choose. Mike says, often availability and price determine the format. Secondhand, you often don't have a choice, right? Because it's chance. Your choice is up to chance. If you want the book at non-exorbitant prices, you take the format you find. Exactly. Kiana says, I frequently buy secondhand riffraff. Nailed it. Exactly. Oh, it's in February. Okay, Homes is where the heart is. I appreciate the lowercase, uppercase diligence. In February. So it'll be the same time as my Black Author Tuber readathon. Okay. Hello, Jim, and welcome. Erin says, I only read the one new hardback a month for a project. To stop me being an old man stuck in the past. What? Because if you didn't, you would buy more hardcovers? I'm curious about this project. If you have a video that has a pointer to the project or something like that, let me know. Drop the link if you have a wrench. And if you don't have a video about it and it's a secret, let us know when you're going to reveal, because that would be cool. You have a wrench now. Alan doesn't have a wrench. Alan has a wrench now. Miss anybody else? Julie's highlighted, I think. Grace. Who are all these people who have not posted links before? Raise your hand if you need a wrench to post a link. I think that's it. I think I caught everybody up. Why is there a notification thing on here? I don't know. Okay. I only read one new release a month because my natural inclination is to read only old stuff. Oh, I see. So you're buying and reading a new release at once. That's some really good control. I would say you are not addicted at all. You're doing very well, Erin. Good job. Okay, so those are my favorites. I showed the difference in price. Okay, no guesses in the chat for the difference in price. This book in 1997 cost $21.95. $21.95, 29 Canada dollars. This book in 1997 was $5.99. And Elaine, don't give me the Canada is priced more. That's foreign currency difference because they use the same books in both markets. $6, $22. And now hardcovers are $30 to $35. And these are like $10. They used to be $4, now they're $10. So it's crazy. It's crazy. Have our wages kept up? No, they have not. So, okay. Here's some of the books that I am looking forward to reading that I have in mass market paperback format. I just combed through my shelves and picked off the mass market paperback ones that I've picked up through the years. So this I actually just read the front because I was trying to try a chapter, and the first couple paragraphs really drew me in. This is actually going to be part of a a feature about watch later lists. But The Street by Ann Petrie, I've been trying to read this for years on Booktube. This is my somewhat pulpy cover edition. I think it's a cool cover, actually. And yeah, it's epic. I keep getting told by people that it's fantastic, and I just should really read it. It's by Pyramid Books, which I think is a disappeared imprint or publisher, but interesting to see them, right? We got a really famous romance, literary romance by Emily Henry called Beach Read. A very lackluster cover, in my opinion, but that's because they don't put any budget into their mass market paperbacks. It's by Berkeley, which is mostly a trade paper thing. I did have 2 versions of this, and I decided to go with this one because it would take up less space while I wait to read it, to be in the mood. And yeah, I don't think I'll be keeping it. Classics, Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe. I've been waiting to read this one because I don't know if it's going to be any good. Bantam Classics. So there's the publisher, Bantam again. Here's the thing about Bantam. Let me read the quote. So Fern Michaels was a really huge romance mass market paperback profiteer, and so was Bantam. Jacqueline Suzanne's mega hit Valley of the Dolls sold 300,000 hardcovers, so the big frontline, in 1966, while the Bantam paperback sold 4 million. 300,000 versus 4 million in its first week on sale in 1967, and more than 8 million in its first year. One of the biggest mass market bestsellers of all time was the 1975 tie-in edition, which most people on Booktube hate. Tie-in to the movie Jaws. And did anyone clock that? Jaws is one of the biggest selling mass market paperbacks in history, which is funny. The cover art closely resembled the movie poster, sold 11 million copies in its first 6 months. While hardcover reprints were a staple for mass market paperback publishers, some also released mass market originals. One author who thrived using that strategy was the Western writer Louis L'Amour. I don't have any Louis L'Amour books. Bantam has more than 150 million copies of Louis L'Amour's books in mass market print. And mass market paperback was also the format of choice for publishing instant books. What is an instant book, you ask? Such as 1964's The Report of the Warren Commission. And so you may have remembered, no one on here is going to remember, sorry. A couple years ago, I did a fantastic review of anti-monopoly labor folks testifying in Congress, and it was printed as an instant book in the 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s, somewhere in there, in its heyday. And it's just the testimonies of these people who came in and said, yeah, my boss did this, or yeah, we were told to do this, or we stood up and got punished by this. And it's a great labor record. So instant books, they don't sound very appetizing, but great opportunities. And the Warren Commission was one. The Starr Report was another, I'm sure. And not the 9/11 Commission, although they had an instant book. What's the one I'm thinking of? More recent. Well, maybe it won't be printed. Who knows? Folger Shakespeare Library had their own publishing imprint. So I've still got a few Shakespeares in my collection that I haven't read. As You Like It, as a Signet classic, is another one. I do like their covers. They're kind of quirky. And then the Folger Library Old Edition, Merchant of Venice, is also in that camp. Look at that. 45 cents. Washington Square Press. Look at that. So, pieces of history. This is why I'm a book rescuer. Then we've got The Vicar of Wakefield, another classic by Oliver Goldsmith, published by, see that, larger type for easy reading, by Magnum Easy Eye. Oh, actually it is. Look at that. That's pretty big. It's pretty big. So that's cool. Classic. This is one of the ones I found in Canada. Elizabeth Goudge, The Rosemary Tree, published by Coronet. Coronet is a one that pops up in some of these older ones. Interesting cover art, illustrated, not graphic, not two-dimensional. I like that. She's a mid-20th century author. More classics, The Color Purple. Still haven't read that, by Alice Walker, published by Pocket Books Fiction. So I got a copy of that. There's many copies of that. Alan Watts, Who's heard of Alan Watts? I don't think many people have, but he's a gem philosopher from the 1960s, just really saying things that we should have listened to a long time ago. This is Nature, Man, and Woman, which again, published by Vintage. This is like my faith in Vintage as a publisher is borne out. $1.65, blurb by Aldous Huxley. Amazing. Jane Jacobs. Anyone who's like sociology or urban planning would know Jane Jacobs. This is not read at all. This I've read excerpts from for grad school, The Death and Life of Great American Cities, but I haven't read the whole thing, so snapped those up when I found them. This is one I just got, The Ordeal of Change by Eric Hoffer. These are vintage books, and this one is Perennial Library, 60 cents. Look at that. I just feel like, again, they're little pieces of history and useful. So I'm glad they're still around. Elaine even puttering heard that. Yes, because I think it's misplaced. So I just wanted to show you. My copy of Dracula, $1.75, new paperback, just one price, not this BS, different prices. Well, it's Canadian dollars versus US, and they weren't always so close. They used to be about 30% off. So I would always have to calculate in my head if I went to Canada, which it wasn't often. And when I go to the UK now, it used to be like twice as much as the dollar to do a Great British Pound, and now it's like 1.5. So, hi, Laura. Hello. I have the Jaws mass market paperback. Oh my gosh, that is a piece of history. Only 11 million sold. It's ripped in half, annoyingly, but I still kept it. Oh, that's a bummer. Catboss says, I bought all the Jacqueline Susan paperbacks reissued, so pretty, in the mid-'80s. Don't judge. I don't know. I haven't read her. I haven't heard of her. I've heard of Valley of the Dolls. I just didn't know it was hers, and was not a fan of the film style. So yeah, I didn't really get into it. Mike says, I remember the Warren Commission and the Star Report. Feeling old. I keep finding old mass market paperbacks that are too old to have ISBNs. Yes, that is annoying for people who like to track their reads. I do this all the time. Yeah, this definitely not going to have an ISBN. In case you don't know, and in case you don't track, the ISBN is the store locator number for across the world. So I think it started in the late 80s, maybe 90s. Once markets became sufficiently globalized to need a number that wouldn't change across markets, so that when you go in and you see this book with this cover, you go, oh, this is the number for this cover. And as an author, when you change anything about the trim size, when you change enough about the interior, like not just a typo, but like I don't know, page numbers for chapters or an afterword or a foreword or something like that, it needs a new edition, which means it needs a new ISBN. Annoying when you don't have one. Catboss says, when I worked in a discount bookshop in the early 90s, Penguin Classics were 99p. Yeah. I just have feelings about that. I don't have facts, so I'm going to not say anything. Catboss says, Team Alan Watts. Yes, all the way. Love Alan Watts. Hello, Eva, and welcome. Aaron says, I have the Waterworld novelization. That one wasn't quite as popular. No. But it's interesting. Like, there's these marketing words like tie-in cover, tie-in paperback that sometimes leak out and catch on in the reader world, but sometimes they don't. Elaine says, I like the Book Rescuer better than the Bookaholics. Yeah. May start calling my book hauls that as I shop at the thrift store. Yeah. I like it too. We are rescuing books. Jim says the first version of the ISBN identification format was devised in 1967. Okay. 978 is Bookland ISBN. What's Bookland? They all start with that, don't they? I want to know what the first book was that has an ISBN. That would be an interesting question, actually. Don't ask ChatGPT. Please. Someone Google that. Elaine, the Book Rescuer. Yeah. Elaine rescues a lot of books that I would be happy to Let someone else try, that's for sure. Lane says, back in the 1970s when I bought Dracula, books only had one price. That old. Well, that's because they were only sold in one market, my dear. That's probably related to that. We weren't globalized. We didn't ship things all around the world at that point. Grace says, I do worry that the pushing of books into less affordable types is going alongside the crisis of literacy here in the US. Oh, less affordable types. Sorry, I wrote less and was thinking the bottom of the market. Yeah. There was no way I could have afforded a book at current prices as a kid. Totally. Which is why, like I resist every time I have to bump up the price of this to keep ahead of the printing, production, paper, and energy prices that I get at my drop shipper, right? At Ingram or Amazon or Draft to Digital. But they have their percentages and their formulas, and you need to, I don't know, make $1 a book. Is it okay to make $1 a book as like a business model? As the author of said book? So that's really hard. Google said no book gets the credit. All right, I believe you. I'm pretty sure it was like they lined up all the books in a catalog of publishers and said like all of these, and yeah. We're laughing. There had to be a first. It's a mystery. I like this. We come up with the best questions on these. I love it. Watch, why does every book come from the same country on YouTube? Ooh, okay, we've got a recommendation. Publishing Insider recommendation. I like it. Star that one for later. Eva says, my son, who has read since a very young age, is now 8 and wants ebooks over physical books. Interesting. So the preference is for a screen. Maybe because you can control the font or the tactileness is better. Interesting. Kiana's with you. Eva also says, I think physical books are starting to be an old concept to his era. Ugh. But he also loves them and collects them. Oh, okay. And Catbot provided the link. Lovely. Thank you. Erin says, in 84 Charing Cross Road, she was buying books from the UK because they were cheaper as well as more available than in the US. I think you mean. Yes. So this is about non-globalized book markets and scarcity. She was doing this right after the war, and I think that affected the prices in the UK, frankly. Yeah. Eva says yes for Kindle. I haven't said yes yet. I'm sure there's plenty of like refurbished ones too that you can like bang up a little bit. Eloise says, I've recently learned there's a number of local printers in my area that have competitive pricing. I'm definitely going to be working with them the next time I need to order author copies. Interesting. So Author Insider feature again. There was a machine in Powell's called the Espresso Book Machine, EBM. And it was basically, I'm guessing, what these printers had. They had a digital computer that could print all in one place. It had the paper format going through the crazy machine. It had the glue. It had the threads, whatever it needed to be sewn up for trade paper. Some of these are made on the Espresso Book Machine. And it was expensive to do author copies. It was like $20 a book, but that was what I used for my beta readers for my first circle of reading, so people would have something physical to mark up. Back in the old days in 2013, they discontinued that. They took it out. They no longer offer that, which is really sad. It's been years now, but competitive pricing. Yeah. He has devices already. US even. Yeah, I gotcha. Grace says, yes, authors deserve most of that money. In my opinion, it feels like less to go around for all when big companies capture the market. In so many ways. And if I can remember to pop up our discussion from Agitation August about Amazon's monopoly, I will put it here as a card after the live stream is finished, because we discuss a lot of those squeeze out practices. Yeah. But we're not only talking about the printers and distributors, we're also talking about the publishers themselves for trad pub authors. Don't get me started. Elaine says, Agreed about physical books and thoughts. Part of why I collect physical. Sentimental. Eva says we have a home library and a kids library, and the kiddo gets book money anytime he asks, and we have it. Sometimes when he asks and we don't got it. Yeah. Elastic demand within the household budget. I feel ya. My hometown was home to 2 book bindery factories. That's so cool. How did you know that? I wouldn't have known that about my hometown when I was younger. One closed, so just one now. Fiction, nonfiction textbooks. I worked there. Oh, that's why. Know a lot who have or do. They offered private prints for a lot of dollars, it looks like. I worked there. That's so cool to have the insider view. Book bindery factories. So book munitions. In this war on intellectualism, you were working in a book munitions factory, Eva. Rebrand it. Whatever happened to those machines? I'm assuming they got scrapped and, sent to West Africa on some beach somewhere, just like all our fast fashion. Or actually, Southeast Asia is where I see all the electronics dumping. Elaine says, I am guessing our 4K book friend on her Kindle would have way less if they were physical. Yes, I think Jenny is an opportunistic ebook purchaser for sure. I don't know if that's relevant, but there you go. Yeah, the book bindery is so cool. I worked as a picker and as a processor. Pickers walked the giant warehouse and got books for orders. Schools and libraries. Processing put the Dewey Decimal System stickers on when ordered. That's so cool. Oh, I want to know more about this. Alan says there are quite a few books being issued as print on demand now, especially from Amazon. Yes, but you can also do print on demand from other drop shippers. So I'm using those. They're different processes, but it's often the same company in the market. So when I say Ingram Spark, they are the biggest wholesale distributor. They are the one that has the catalog that all the bookstores use. Gosh, no motive to monopolize that. But I'm on Ingram as well as Draft to Digital, which is print on demand and then ships it for you. So Eva says, my longest friend has worked there since she was 18. Her mother retired from there. Small town, Illinois. Wow. Hertzberg is the name of the bindery I worked at. That's so cool. Okay, I'm starting this. I'm going to see if I can find any information. Book bindery factory. I don't know what that would look like, but you're giving me like some ideas here, some visuals, which I appreciate. I love it. Okay, so what else did I have on here? The other format. Oh, no, TBR is not finished. Dig. What else do we have in mass market paperback to look forward to? So another Park Godwin, who is the author of the Robin Hood book. Lord of Sunset, I think, is about Arthur. Nope, Normans and Saxons, Harold of Wessex. So English historical fiction, like chunker, epic, pretty cool. Another classic, Mary Stuart. So let's see. This is published by Avon. So there's got to be a little bit of romance in there. The Crystal Cave, national bestseller by Mary Stuart, is from Fawcett. I love getting to know the imprints, and that's cool. This is one I've had forever and have not read. Barbara Hambly's Dragon Star. So obviously a fantasy by Del Rey, big player in the market there. And then Peter S. Beagle, author of The Last Unicorn, a book called Tamsin, which I think would be up Cat Paw's alley because it's got a cat on the cover and like a ghost cat behind. I never noticed that until right now. Two lonely souls on opposite sides of life and death in the English countryside. Tamsin died more than 300 years ago, so there are ghosts. And that is put out by one I've never heard of, Firebird Fantasy. But Peter Beagle is a big deal, so yeah, I thought that would be a good one. Now, the other formats that I thought would be a curiosity for this crowd. How many of you guys heard of Dover Thrift? So I remember this from high school. We had Dover Thrift. This is another Oliver Goldsmith. She Stoops to Conquer. He also did The Vicar of Wakefield earlier. These are very thin, but a little bit larger format. So there to compare. So they may be the trim size of a trade paper, maybe-ish, but they're always really skinny. I have a Hamlet copy of this. And the font is, well, this one looks pretty small. Plays are often printed like this, and they often have sort of generic pattern covers. And I just really appreciate it's a part of the market, right? It's a part of the market. How many of you guys have used Dover Thrift editions? I know the other bindery allowed skating back in the day for their pickers. They could use skates to get around the warehouse. Wow. Okay, that's making... I won't say it. That's so cool. It is really cool. Oh my gosh. Eva says, to those who grew up around there, less cool. Well, but it is. It is. It is to us. Yeah. So Crystal Cave from the Merlin series. Yes. Erin says, I love Dragon's Bane by Hamley. Oh, a recommendation. Awesome. Okay. Papa says, love it. The Ghost in the Gothic Window. Swoon. I know. It's fun. That Goldsmith book is pretty, says Laura. Yes. Mike says Dover Thrift is popular. Very, very reasonable pricing. Yes. Right. So they're not meant to last. They fall apart pretty easily because the thin binding, but well, use this one was $1, but even new, $2, $3, $1.90. So very different structure, but obviously less durable. And then the other one I had that sort of fell into that category is really thin, Oxford World's Classics. It's more getting towards trade paper, I guess, but I think it's the meant to be a more affordable option. $7. So pricing is the same, and I don't know how long they're meant to last, but it's done pretty well. It's done pretty well over time. I haven't read Horace Walpole's The Castle of Otranto. So there's that. So there's like thinner, less durable, more likely to come apart Dover Thrift editions. And then there's the French version, which I have because I used to read French books. We've got Folio, and they do it backwards. So I have Pirandello, 6 personnages en quête d'auteur. And it's backwards from the way we would lay it on the shelf. But that's cheaper quality, cheaper paper, more likely to fall apart, pocket size. So you could actually put this in a denim jeans pocket. This is the same idea. Livre de poche for Jane Eyre, French. Again, it's got to be longer because it's smaller font and cheaper pages. You could say it's sprayed edges, right? I wanted to read that a long time ago, and I haven't given up on it, but Les Récrés du Petit Nicolas. So this is one of the little cute fun ones. It's called Folio Junior Edition. It's actually got little illustrations in there, so I've read that one. French, we have other translations. Conan Doyle's La Grande Ombre. So this is from, they put their publishers in the back. 1982. Imprimerie Bussière à Saint-Amand. It doesn't really help me with the brand name, but I think that's all I'm going to get. Series. Édition de Rocher. Okay, there's lots of names there, none that I recognize. So I do like the cover, though. Little Napoleon there. The big shadow. The shadow over Europe of Napoleon. And then someone's favorite book, Emmanuel Carrère, Un roman russe, which is another folio, which is one of their big pocket editions. And the first page, I'm on page 12, already sort of made me feel like it's not a me book, but Daniela loves that author, so I'm trying to hang on. Jim says, She Stoops to Conquer was one of the texts I had for English literature O-level. Okay. Yeah, I think it's a foundational text over there, but not here. So it's sort of a very niche in America. Bethan says, I have to get going for meetings. Really enjoyed this discussion. I'll try to catch the rest on replay. Oh, okay. So I'll take this opportunity. I didn't do current updates. next steps. So Beth Ann and I are going to be doing an announcement video together on Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific. I know that's late for some of you, but that is the time we're going to do this, so you can catch us on the replay. We're going to do an announcement of a readathon, and if you want to catch that and join us, we'll be doing it then. That's my coming up. Mike says Shakespeare Sonnets, Dickens in America, Joseph Conrad. I think that's for Dover Thrift. Yeah, that's the same thing. My sonnets are on one of those as well. Is that the same folio that does the fancy hardbacks? I didn't know they did paperbacks. I don't think so. I think this folio French publisher is going to be owned by different people. Yeah, I don't think, unless they have the same like font and stuff. Let me know. Alan says Oxford World Classics are a bit more expensive now. Yeah, I'm getting the used ones. Wordsworth Classics are the more affordable options here. Wordsworth Classics, interesting. Name of an author, but it's a publisher. About £4 each. Nice. Maybe Folio versus Folio Society. I know Folio Society is the one that makes the Shakespeare ones, which is definitely different. But yeah. But all that ridiculous treasure in mass market paperback form. So yeah, different fonts. Okay, so different branding. It's not showing your comment, even though I'm clicking on it. Okay, so StreamYard's cooked. That's all right. There we go. All these treasures in mass market paperback format that they don't want us to have access to. So, you know, comb your thrift stores, comb your garage sales, comb anything that is people like estate sales, getting rid of old books because they are durable and they have a lot of great literature in them, from classics to romance to mystery. So your comfort read, or you're participating in a fantastic Booktube readathon. Yeah, so it's a little sad. And, you know, the tracing it back to corporate greed, not a surprise. And, you know, if I can get other people to show off their mass market paperbacks or Dover Thrift editions, that would make me happy. So if you want to do a little shout out on another video about your mass market paperbacks, that would be kind of fun. That's all for me today. I was just going to put up the banner about any upcoming attractions. That's what I was looking for. So I don't have the one up for Friday yet because I'm waiting for a little feedback from Beth Ann, but it's not going to be in the morning like usual. It's going to be in the evening so that we can do it together, and that should be really fun. But anyone else have coming attractions they want us to know about, or you just got the wrench and you really want to drop a link in the comments because now you have the power. That's okay too. Aaron says maybe the price of mass market paperbacks will become very valuable in the future and I will be rich. Yeah. Someone in one of the sources I put in the description said there will probably be an evolution back to a more affordable, smaller option that will fit in a purse. And I wonder what they'll call it. It's funny because sometimes this happens in other industries where something goes extinct and then comes back around and people think they've invented a thing and they're like, oh, you mean that? And yeah, new branding. Who dis, right? New phone, who dis? Alan says mass market paperback for Jaws 2 by Hank Searles, currently selling for about £50. Well, that's not going to be as ubiquitous as the 11 million copies sold original. So I can see how that might be worth a little bit more. Yeah. Laura says looking at all those old books made me very happy. See, I love it. There's a tag I have on my list that is 10 prettiest covers, which I don't think any of these would qualify for, but you know, it's like the anti-pretty cover feature. The power. Yes. Hey, Adrian. Good to see Margaret on my screen. Hello, friend. Little author tube love here for another author. Like vinyl records. Yeah, although I don't think people invented them. I just think they didn't know they were cool already, you know? Even my nephew. Ladies, don't forget to high five the like button, everyone. Thank you. I need to check what Waterworld is. Yeah, there might be a little range. You might need to do a little research. I just checked Lulu, and they still have Pocket as an option. In terms of publishing, you mean? I think the print-on-demand folks like Lulu, unless there's a different Lulu, I don't know, print-on-demand folks will still have it because it's up to you, right? Yeah, exactly, like vinyl. I think there was something else. I know what it was. It's an Apple release recently. Did any of you guys see there's like a iPod or iPhone holder, and it was just scathingly reviewed when it came out? It was like a crocheted man bag. I don't know what people were saying about it. They were just saying very funny things, and I think it was sufficiently put down that no one bought it, and it may have been a flop. Did anyone else see that, or was that just me? Wonder if anyone wants my ripped in half jaws. Yeah, only 11 million other copies. 16 watching, only 15 likes. Step up, people! Mike's doing the math. Thank you, Mike. I'm laughing. I might send off my unfinished manuscript so I can have one, just in case it disappears. Okay, so you mean the same Lulu that I'm thinking of. Yeah, that would be good. It was a sock. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Adrian knows what I'm talking about. Apple tried to put out something that was like a sock and charged, I don't know, $120 for it, something ridiculous. We were not having that. We olds were not having that. So stay strong there. This is ridiculous. Hi, Andy. I want a Walkman. I don't have a Walkman, but you know what I do have, Julie? Never fear. I've got your cassette deck right here. And it's within arm's reach because I do use it. I've had a little squirrely trouble with the playing lately, but hopefully I just need to clean it. Hello, Andy. We have socks at home. Yes, we do. My mother used one of those to record our landline phone calls. You can record phone calls on this? Through a wire or just like sitting it next to the phone? I don't understand the recording through the wire thing. I'm not a tech person. Yeah. Well, someone else will try to charge an arm and a leg for it, but we will remember because we were there before. Can't pull the wool over our eyes, right? Hopefully. So my coming attraction is this Friday evening. If you want to join us to announce the readathon in February for Black AuthorTubers books, that is my February thing. This is going to be the 5th year that we're doing this to support other AuthorTubers. And yeah, so that's my next thing. And I don't see anyone else with links. Sneaky. See, that's the kind of technology I can keep up with, right? All right. Well, thank you all for being here and watching and being sentimental about the old days. I value that immensely. Shout out your favorite mass market paperback in your next video or in a comment down below, and we will be sentimental together. So thanks, everyone. Take care of yourselves. Be safe out there. Diversify that reading list, and happy reading, everyone. We'll talk to you later.